At Purpose Lab, experimentation and conversations are a key part of how we learn and innovate. Join us for a conversation about what works, what doesn't, and how today's decisions are shaping tomorrow's financial ecosystem. Welcome to Agents in Action. So today, we're exploring AI adoption from a very unique perspective, that of a traditional Japanese banking institution navigating innovation within conservative frameworks. I'm joined by Shohta Ishii, Executive Director from the SMBC Asia Innovation Center here in Singapore. Now, what makes this conversation particularly fascinating is how SMBC approaches AI adoption. They're not really chasing the latest AI trends, but instead, they're methodically building innovation capabilities. Ishii-san, welcome to Agents in Action.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
So Ishii-san, it would be great to get a brief introduction of the work that the Innovation Center does.
We are SMBC, one of the largest banks, and SMBC has set up an organization called Asia Innovation Center out of Singapore to drive really a digital transformation for both external customer and internal SMBC. And there are three pillars that we are focusing on right now. Number one, creating a digital customer engagement team, chasing and looking after our corporate clients to do a facilitation of a workshop, discuss digital agenda, and deliver the digital transformation solutions to our corporate client. Number two, building a new muscle, new capabilities within SMBC. This year, we are specifically focusing on building generative AI enable solutions. And three, we have corporate venture capital arms, which look after the emerging technologies and the market and make investment into startups and fintech partners.
When we first met, you were calling out some of the challenges and opportunities that you saw in adoption of agentic AI. Would you be able to elaborate a bit on that?
Looking at the market, there are a lot of emerging technologies and the vendors. So when they are going to talk about the solutioning, they struggle to find the right partner. AI adoptions, once they start adopting for largest corporations, it's not easy to do. So they spend a lot of time to think and to design those frameworks before adoption of AI. But they don't have those capability and the experiences before. Opportunity-wise, as I said, we set up innovation center. How we set up those innovation center? We basically hire a lot of people from, external, other banks, technology vendors, consultancy, trading firms, and things like that. So we are blending the, capability, skill set, and the background, and the diversify. And, when we have, diversified team, it's really easier for us to discuss and think about what will be the right solution, what will be the right framework that we can deliver to our corporate clients. So this is the challenges and the opportunity that we are seeing right now.
This is pretty amazing, especially for a bank like SMBC. It's over a century old, and for them to sort of adopt this progressive way of doing it is very fascinating. And that really brings me to this notion of innovating within boundaries. As an innovation team, how do you identify the opportunities? How do you go about materializing them?
It's important to design the whole program back to back and end to end. What I mean by that is there are three layers. As I said, number one layer is always customer. We design and facilitate the design thinking workshop and really discuss the pain point and the situation that our corporate client is having right now. And then once we identify those needs and the pains, we always tie them back to our core banking businesses. So the relevancy to our core banking businesses is always important. We involve the right stakeholders, front office, product department, and the operation team into the discussion. And then we discuss those opportunities all together. This is layer two. Layer three, we always look back at our core foundation and the infrastructure and the capability that we have. As of today, there is always decision making and the choice of whether we build a new capability within SMBC or buy capability from external, or three, we customize what we have and deliver and serve our customers differently. So we always look at those three layers, but again, importance is, design the whole program back to back to ensure that we create the business value to our corporate clients.
Have you developed any frameworks, how you evaluate these AI initiatives? Because I'm thinking there may be a customer need, but it also has to align with what the bank needs, like a bank's governance structure. Do you have any frameworks of sorts you can share with us?
So there is a framework to evaluate every single new initiative that we pursue. But when we are talking about digital, we play an important role. For example, when we are designing a Gen AI-based solution, what we call CFO agent, we really put a lot of effort into transparency, explainability, and traceability. Without those components, a Gen AI solution can generate any contents without any framework. So it's very important to have not just a framework, but the capability supporting those frameworks. This is what we really focus on.
We've spoken a lot in our previous sessions about how to sequence an AI implementation strategy. It's quite different from our traditional ways of doing work. How do you sequence implementation while delivering value that's measurable?
Number one principle is involving right stakeholders, from day one is pretty important. But second, right, there are a lot of methodologies in the market. And from our background, we are quite used to small start, fail first, and learn from failures. Every single initiative, every single day, we use those methodologies into day of work.
At least in this series, Ishii-san, we've spoken a lot about pilots, how important they are, because it allows you to sort of start with a small idea and move forward. But what we've seen is we've had a lot of pilots, but not many of them go to production. What has been your experience around running pilots and scaling some of these pilots?
We really laser focus on not only the capability building, but also framework building. As I explained, CFO agent project, generative AI enabled solutions. A lot of management ask me, what kind of cool things you can do on top of the generative AI. Before building cool capability on top of the system, we have to have right foundation, which includes, again, transparency, traceability, and explainability. So we spend really a lot of time on this one. For example, when user asks question to the system always explain how this question is interpreted. So this kind of trust building activities are quite important when we are building Gen AI based capability. This is one of the examples, but we focus on narrow down the scope and what really matters for those systems or project to be in the life. And then we spend a lot of time building those components before really building up the capability. I think this framework so far is successful in this organization.
And if I remember right, you actually built the CFO agent yourself. So Ishii-san, beyond the technical metrics, what are some of the other measures that you would consider to say an AI adoption has been successful?
In a corporate banking environment, we always tie back whatever of initiative that we are pursuing back to our core banking businesses in terms of our revenue generation. So we measure the contribution of our initiative to our corporate banking revenue. So we have those kind of internal framework to track those contributions. I think this is pretty important to increase the visibility and get more management and stakeholders support onto our initiatives.
I would think that's a great way of doing it, because if it's a cost to the bank, the longevity is quite light. But if you can tie it back to important metrics that the bank has, then it funds itself. Absolutely. Now, that's a great thing. Another question that pops up, especially for a Japanese bank, is in Singapore, there's been a lot of push for innovation, and it's like fast and it's quick. There's been a lot of incentives for companies to push for innovation. How do you bridge that when you have SMB's traditional banking culture, but also in the spirit that with the Innovation Center, you're doing a lot of new things? How do you balance both?
I think organization setup is a key for this one. While we are hiring a lot of people from outside of the organization, we always keep some banking experiences. So we mix those people together and create the organization. People coming from outside don't know how the communication will happen inside the organization. So organization setup by nature will mix up and blend it.
I spent a little bit of time in Japan, and every time that we ran a change management plan in Japan, it landed very differently from what we would do in any other market, especially from Singapore. Change management is a big component of this, right? Especially if you take on an AI. How do you manage that for the bank itself and when you talk to your customers, when you're landing the innovation with your customers?
Our background is a little bit unique. So we are coming from a manufacturing background. In manufacturing space, we have Six Sigma methodologies. So define, measure and implement. So it's pretty important before implementation, you try to define what matters the most and you try to measure it. So that at least even a small start, you can measure the outcome. And the outcome is pretty important. Every single initiative, you have to have small value creation out of the initiative. Otherwise, you cannot scale it. And the change management, same thing. For people who are experiencing those AI adoptions, until they see the value, they don't know what they are doing. Why, you have to adopt it. We have to explain not only how the solution can change the day of life for the people, but also showing the value, actual value, business value to those people. Once you have those kind of setup, then it's much easier for change management.
Every time you talk about AI, generative AI, agentic architecture, there's always that component of risk. And with risk, there's always the component of governance. How do you balance both of that in that spirit of innovation?
There are two things. One, show by example. Until they see how the system works, how the system is designed, then they are not convinced. So early prototyping of the solution was pretty important. In the really early phase of development and designing those programs, we actually went to compliance and the legal officer as a first organization that we consulted with. So this kind of communication, internal stakeholder management would be unchanged, pretty important.
What are some of the processes that you've put in place to make sure that the AI innovation that you lead meets governance and risk regulatory requirements?
Stakeholder management, talking to our compliance and the legal officers are pretty important. They are quite supportive on those kind of AI and the Gen AI initiatives. We basically explain from different perspectives, right? Not only a system and a capability point of view, we also explain from a customer's point of view how we design those components, architecture, capability, and what's the right expectation from users. Feedbacks. We explain everything to our compliance and the legal officer and ask for their advice before pursuing next phase of the project.
So Ishii-san, there's one last one, and I ask all of my guests this. If you were advising a CEO of one of the customers that you were supporting, what recommendations would you give them on building an AI strategy?
There are three components. One, in order to accelerate our AI usage adoptions, you gotta have muscle and capability within the organization. So in-house capability building is pretty important. So along with the training or enablement, those are the components that they need to value. Number two, hiring right talent. If you cannot hire talent from outside, you can still train and enable those people, but they need to show the leadership and always management direction is pretty important in terms of AI and Gen AI adoptions. Number three, embrace the opportunity and probably failure of adopting those AI. Then they can learn from a failure.
Well, thank you so much, Ishii-san. This has been a fantastic conversation, one that I've enjoyed a lot. And thank you for joining us, and I hope to see you again.